same, you're not acting the same, and you're like, oh, no, it's okay. People know that something's wrong. So this went on for years. And then I got sick, really sick a couple of years ago. This went all the way up to just probably 4 years ago. Then I got cancer of the uterus. It was stage 4. I was told I probably wasn't going to make it. They told me to have a hysterectomy. I said no. I felt like as long as I was given these organs, they weren't going to be taken away from me. And that's when I started to realize that something was going on with me. And I knew at this point, because I had turned 40, that there was a problem that I absolutely needed to deal with, and that was the fact that I had never grieved this child. I had told my parents about 15 years ago, so they knew that the abortion had existed, but they really didn't know what to do to help deal with it. So through the spiritual direction of Father Mitch Pacwa, he introduced me to Father Pavone, and so Father Pavone and Janet's one of the co-founders of Silent No More, they had talked to me and said, you really need to go to Rachel's Vineyard. You really need to experience this retreat-type atmosphere that can help you begin the healing process, and it's going to take a while. You'll probably grieve for the rest of your life, but you at least need to get these things out and be around men and women that have been through this as well, so that you understand that you're not half crazy, because you literally do think that you're starting to go crazy. So I said, well, I know I need to do this, but I'm not quite ready yet. So I got through the first year of being sick, and on the year anniversary to the day of when I was cancer-free, they told me I had cancer again. And this was down at St. Vincent's in Birmingham, and I literally walked outside where the fountain is, and there's the statuary that's to commemorate the 4 foundresses of St. Vincent's. I walked out, and there's a black woman sitting at the fountain, and she was sitting there kind of watching the water, and she walked out, and I go, what are you trying to tell me? And she goes, are you talking to me? I said, no, I'm talking to him. Because I really didn't know what was going on. But I really truly believe that was our Lord's way of telling me, Jackie, it's time. You've got to deal with this. And that's one of the reasons why perhaps the cancer was in the part of my body that it was in. But after talking to my doctors, we now know for sure that this is just a complication of being post-abortive. Just like getting breast cancer, I have a 98% higher chance of getting breast cancer than a woman who's not had an abortion. So this is something that I live with, and knowing that I have a cancer gene, and that everyone in my family has died of some form of cancer, not of just a natural cause. I'm kind of a heightened alert mode most of the time. So I get through episode cancer number 2, same area, same type of treatment. I go for a year and a half. I think, wow, I've got this by the tail. This is going to be great. I get cancer a 3rd time. And when that cancer decides to go away, I inherit something else, which was totally not normal for it to happen. Normally your body will go with fibroids or cancer. Mine decided it needed both. So my doctors thought it was some kind of rare experiment, and we're doing sonograms and all these different things to look at this thing, and we decided that it's growing at such a rapid pace, we have to name it. And so there is a little bit of humor with being sick. You have to try to embrace it, this type of thing. And I realized that my body is starting to have this very distorted look in different strange ways, and it was because I had a tumor growing inside of my uterus that grew to 25 pounds. So it was like I was carrying a 25-pound child inside my body, and it was pressing up against my lungs in one area, pressing against my intestines and everything, so my whole body was starting to shut down. And I knew that there was something that had to happen. It was causing me to hemorrhage all the time, and so another experiment of myself trying to make a deal with God. I thought, well, they told me that I could have surgery. I could either, again, have a hysterectomy, or I could have this removed. So I played back and forth, and I asked the doctor, I said, can I just wait it out and see? And he said, well, you can, but it's obviously proven that it's not going to go away. But if you want to wait a couple of months, we can see what happens and see if it'll shrink just a little bit before we do surgery. So I went to the health food store, and I bought all these different things, all these different concoctions that I put in the microwave every night, and lay on my stomach with flannel, and all these different things to try to shrink the tumor. It didn't work. It only made it worse, in fact. So I went back, and he said, well, you need to have surgery because you're losing too much blood. I was having to take all kinds of blood replacement medications and having units of blood given to me, usually every other month, which is not normal. So we scheduled the surgery, and the day that we scheduled the surgery, I thought, well, they'll probably schedule it like 3 days out, right? I'm so sick, they'll schedule it 3 days out. Well, they scheduled it 3 weeks out because I had to have 6 units of blood before I actually had that surgery. I was in such bad shape, and they had to get me to a point that I was actually going to be able to survive the surgery. And I really didn't tell anyone how bad it was. I just told them that I was really nervous and that, I was going to go under, and I wasn't sure how I was going to come out. They weren't sure if they were going to be able to save my organs or if I was going to come out without them. And at that very moment, I knew that I had to do something about the abortion, because at that very moment, I realized that it wasn't going to be a choice for me anymore for me to try to get pregnant at a later age. That opportunity may be taken away from me for the rest of my life. And all I had to look back on was my past and realize that I was grieving a child that I never had. That may have been the only chance that I had, and that she would have been in her 20s at that point. And I had written down on a piece of paper that I had kept all these years. It was in the back of my Bible, and it was the day that I went and had that done. And it was January the 10th, 1988. So as I'm laying there, getting ready to go into the operating room, I don't know if any of you know Father Paul Assi he's down at St. Francis Assisi in Birmingham. He was the doctor that met me, that came in before surgery. He prayed with me as soon as I checked into the hospital. He came in after pre-op testing, and they had my IV and everything hooked up. Then he even came into the pre-op room when I was literally waiting there to be taken into the operating room. And they had all these emergencies coming in. And so they kept coming over and they kept saying, well, we're going to have to delay you about an hour. We're going to have to delay you another hour. We're going to have to delay you another half hour. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then I was starting to get scared. And I had never felt fear like this in my entire life, except for the fear that I felt the day of the abortion. And it kind of brought it all back to me. And so I'm standing there, and Father Ossie keeps coming in. And at one point he's in his clerics, and the next point he's in his clerics in a little blue bonnet. He's got his shoes covered up and that kind of thing. And he says, do you want me to anoint you? Well, I had been anointed by practically every priest in Birmingham by this point. And I just looked at him and I said, am I supposed to die? And he goes, no, I'm just trying to keep you entertained. So, and if any of you know Father Paul, you know that he's just like that. He kind of walks around with a little beat going. And he's a real cool guy. So as soon as he leaves, it's about 2:45. My surgery was supposed to take place at noon that day. And I thought to myself, my gosh, they won't do surgery this late. They're just going to take me back upstairs. I'll stay like it's a hotel, and they'll take me down first thing tomorrow morning. I had all these things that was always going on in my head. And this is when you learn, don't try to make a deal with God, because he is going to outsmart you every time. And this day he did. It was about 2:45, and finally everyone's out, and I'm freezing to death, and I realized that part of it's nerves too. And because I really was terrified. The nurse comes over and I said, can I have a blanket? And she said, oh, sure. So she walks across, and there's this whole stack of blankets, and there's one pale blue blanket. And she reaches for that one. Yes, blessed mother, yes. And so she goes to pull out the blanket, and she goes, oh, no, it has a hole in it. And she starts to shove it back, and I go, no, I need that one. And she goes, but it has holes in it. I said, no, I gotta have it. So she brings it over, and she lays it on me, and it was just like this peacefulness came over me. It was like the Blessed Mother's mantle was on me, and I knew I was going to be okay. And then I look at the clock, and it's about 3 minutes, and I realize, I've got people all over the world praying for me, and I haven't said my own prayers. All these other people are concerned about me, but I haven't asked God myself. And that reflected me back to before I became a Catholic 16 years ago. I went to a priest in Washington, and I told him, I've known since I was 9 that I need to be Catholic, not want to be, need to be. But I didn't know how to do it. And I thought you had to marry a Catholic to become a Catholic if you weren't a cradle Catholic. I had a very troubled childhood, you can tell. And he said, no. He said, we can enroll you in class. And this was like July of that year, and classes were, RCIA was going to start in September. And I said to him, but I have to go to confession first. He said, but you just told me you're not Catholic. And I said, I know, but I know about confession, and I need to confess something because it may keep me from being Catholic. And he's like, what could it possibly be? And I'm like, oh, you don't want to know. So I told him. I confessed the abortion to him. And he gave me a permanent penance, even before I was Catholic, which turned out to be the most beautiful devotion that I have in my life, other than next to Sacred Heart. And that's Divine Mercy. And I didn't realize the impact of that until just a few years ago, whenever this started happening to me. And at that very moment, when it was just minutes before 3, and I was about to go in and have this surgery, and I thought, I gotta say my prayers and wait divine mercy, and then out comes the orderly, and I'm right in the middle of my prayers, and he's like, Miss Stalnaker, and I'm like, no, I have to finish praying first. And so he stands over for a couple minutes, and he says, Miss Stalnaker, I said, no, let me finish. And, I'm really not a control freak. I don't sound like it. I'm really not. So he stood there patiently. He's a big, huge guy, looks like a linebacker, He's just like standing there looking at him. And when I was finished, and I go across the snow, okay, I'm done, I'm ready to go now. And so he goes wheeling me down. And the most beautiful thing is my doctor, he's a Presbyterian elder at First Presbyterian in Birmingham, and Independent Presbyterian, excuse me. And as soon as I got in the room, and I was really calm, and I look around and I said, I need the name of everybody in here. They're going, oh, something happened. And I said, no, because I know you guys are going to take care of me. And I believe in sending thank you notes even to the lady that empties my garbage in the hospital room. I want to make sure that they know that they're doing a great job. So they wrote everything down, and then I go, wait. Can we film this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, pictures? And they go, well, we'll see what we can do. Sure enough, right before I went out, all the staff, they gathered around me in the OR, and they prayed Hail Mary, and not one of them was Catholic. They prayed a Hail Mary with me, and it was his idea, which was just phenomenal. And he said that he had learned it from working in a pro-life movement before he had moved to Birmingham, and he had been out on the sidewalk praying the rosary, as a Presbyterian. And I've experienced that here in Birmingham as well with an ecumenical movement that I'm involved in. And so I woke up in recovery, and my friend Keith here finds me like almost 6 hours later. I was lost in the hospital for a while. They probably tucked me in a closet somewhere. Nobody knew where I was. I just magically appeared in a hallway, and I see my friend Keith in this bright red sweater, and he's like, hello. I'm like, hey. And as soon as they come in to hook up my morphine pump, I look on my stomach, and there's pictures, and I didn't bring in, I'll spare you guys, but they had pictures of Clarence. We named him, I had named him Howard, but for those of you that know Father Mitch, he said that wasn't a dignified enough name, so he renamed it Clarence. So we decided that it was good because Clarence had a clearance sale that day, and I got rid of it. So I instantaneously dropped 25 pounds, but they blow you up with air, so I felt like the Goodyear blimp when I was walking around taking my first steps. But all of that